back to Money Makes. My name is Callie, and today I cannot wait to share with you my no-knead focaccia recipe. So, if you are new to bread making, this recipe is right up your alley. There's no fancy equipment required to make this. You do not need a stand mixer. There's also no kneading involved in the process of making this focaccia, which is great. It's absolutely delicious. It's so simple. I cannot stress that enough, and you're absolutely gonna love it. It's one of my favorite breads to make, and I can't wait to share this recipe with you. But before we begin, as always, please remember to subscribe, like, share, chat in the comment section, and follow me on social media for more recipes and additional content. So let's get into it. These are the ingredients that we're gonna be using. First off, we have some bread flour, and yes, I'm using bread flour. You can substitute all-purpose flour. However, I highly recommend using bread flour. It's gonna provide just a much better texture than what you get from an all-purpose flour. I also have some garlic powder, kosher salt. Here I have a packet of active dry yeast along with some sugar, and I have some olive oil, extra virgin olive oil of course, and I have some water. So first things first, I'm gonna turn on my burner to about, let's say high, and we wanna warm up the water. So we're warming up the water to pour into the yeast and sugar mixture to activate the yeast. You need the temperature of the water to be between, I would say, like 100 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want the water to be too hot or boiling, because then once you add the water to the yeast, what's gonna happen is it's gonna kill off the yeast and the yeast will not activate. If the water is too cold, it's also not gonna activate the yeast. So you really want the water to be in that sweet spot of 100 to about 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And the best way to know if the water is at the correct temperature is to use an instant read thermometer. But I do have a little trick for you that I do if you don't have an instant read thermometer, just to know how if the water is warm enough. And so this is how that trick goes. What you are looking for is for the water to be very hot, not to the point where if you stick your finger in the water, it's so hot that you have to pull your finger out. Okay, so I'm gonna just let my water heat up a little bit longer, and then we're gonna add it to the yeast mixture, and then we'll go over the next step. So we're gonna pour the water into the yeast and sugar mixture. I'm gonna turn off my burner as well. And all we're gonna do is just give this a stir, and we're gonna let this sit for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you should see bubbles and foam. So I'm gonna let this sit here, get nice and foamy, and after 10 minutes, we will proceed. However, in the meantime, we can mix together our dry ingredients just to get these nice and well incorporated. Okay, so it has been exactly 10 minutes and my yeast has risen quite considerably. You can see here, there's kind of like a layer of foam on the top, and it's really puffy. And I have no doubt looking at this that a transformation has occurred. So next, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add the rest of our ingredients. So our water mixture along with our extra virgin olive oil into this bowl. We're gonna give everything a stir. I think the easiest way to do that is with honestly just a fork, or I'm gonna be using a spatula. We're just gonna give this a stir the best that we can until it becomes the consistency of like a shaggy dough. Okay, so that only took me like not even a minute to stir everything together, and it is nice and in like a big shaggy kind of lump. And so next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some additional olive oil that I just have kept to the side over here, and we're gonna grease this baby up. We want all of the dough to be nice and greased along with the sides and the bottom of the bowl, because we do not want anything to stick. And when you're making a focaccia bread, olive oil and focaccia go together like peanut butter and jelly. They really do. So do not be scared to be generous with olive oil, because that's exactly what a good focaccia dough really wants. So I'm just gonna kind of use my hands now and coat all over with this olive oil. Okay, so this is looking wonderful. Everything is nice and coated. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna cover this with plastic wrap, and I'm gonna pop this in a warm spot for about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, or until this dough ball gets really, really large and puffy. It should about double in size and be almost the same size as the bowl that you're making this in. So make sure you're using a really large bowl so nothing spills over. And then we will carry on to the next step, and I will of course show you what I mean by doubling in size and how large this dough ball should really get. Okay, so we're back. My dough was rising for exactly 2 hours, and it has puffed up significantly. It has transformed into a big puffy cloud, which lets you know that it is time to proceed. So I just, as you just saw, just kind of stuck my hand in the center, kind of want to release some of that air in it. And look at that, it's squishy, it's just absolutely perfect. So here I have a baking sheet, and to this I'm gonna add maybe a couple tablespoons of olive oil to the bottom of the pan. And like I said earlier, focaccia and olive oil go hand in hand. So do not be scared of all of the oil that is going into this recipe. It's gonna provide great texture and flavor. This is a very flavorful bread if you've never had focaccia. It's really oil infused, there's a lot of salt. For this recipe, I'm just doing literally a traditional focaccia recipe. We're not gonna put on any toppings, but I will be putting toppings on different focaccia recipes in future videos, so be sure to subscribe so you're notified when those recipes drop. But today, this is just your basic as it gets focaccia recipes. Next up, we're gonna put our dough, and we're going to try to get it to spread into each corner and along each side of the pan, and just take your time. It's really, really supple and easy to manage. But if you get to a point where you're noticing that you really can't reach the sides of the pan, the dough's kind of retracting in on itself, that's completely normal. That's just the gluten. You need to let the gluten get a chance to relax. And so all you're gonna do is just pop on that same plastic wrap that we were using on the top earlier over the dough for maybe like 5-10 minutes. Just give it a chance to kind of settle down, because as much as you're gonna wanna fight it, you just can't. That is just what happens when you're working with dough. So I'm gonna continue to just gently maneuver this dough into each side of the pan, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so this is looking wonderful. I am just going to pop the same plastic wrap that I was using earlier over the top, and I'm gonna let this rise for the second time, just at room temperature, for about 1 hour. Okay, so my dough has been rising for an hour, and it has gotten nice and puffy, which is exactly what we're looking for. And while this was rising, I preheated my oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, so that is nice and hot. I preheated it about halfway through this dough rising. You just want to make sure it's really, really hot. So this is the fun part. We're just going to take our fingers, clean hands of course, and we're just going to dimple the focaccia all the way across the whole entire thing. We want to, when I'm dimpling this, I'm literally touching the bottom of the pan. So really get in there. I mean, this is like that signature dimply focaccia look that we're making right here. And just look at how just like supple and wiggly this is. It is awesome. Great, I cannot wait. Alrighty, so just a few more. It's so satisfying to do that. It's doing that, it's hard to stop. So if we didn't have enough olive oil already, we're gonna add some more over the top. So again, be generous and just pour it all over. You want the olive oil to get into all those kind of nooks and crannies and dimples that we just formed. So just pour that over the top. Then I'm gonna go through, and I might add a little bit more. I'm actually gonna kind of, when you dimple it again, it kind of helps disperse some of that olive oil, but really gently. I'm just kind of using my hands and kind of pushing it around so it pulls over the entirety of the top. And look at this, this is gonna be so good. Okay, now that all of my olive oil is added, we're gonna go in with some flaky coarse salt. I'm using some kosher salt. If you have just any kind of flaky salt, that'll do. Okay, now this is gonna go into my oven that again is preheated at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 to 23 minutes. You'll know when it's done, when the top gets nice and golden brown. And then I'm gonna give you a close-up of just how amazing this focaccia really is. my focaccia baked for exactly 23 minutes in the oven, and it is nice and golden brown. It looks amazing. It smells amazing. I cannot wait to dig into this. This is just so amazing. You saw how simple it was. And I think I said earlier, but I'm gonna have more focaccia recipes coming out in the future with various toppings, so be sure to subscribe to my channel so you're notified when those recipes drop. And for the full written recipe and instructions, head to my blog, mooneymakes.com. I'll put the link for that in the description box below. Click on the link, the recipe will pop right up. And make this focaccia bread. I promise you're gonna love it. And let me know what you think, because I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.